Greetings, this is Professor Wolf, and this is a quick overview of week 4 of the client-side web programming course. So this week we're going to look at how we use JavaScript and the new HTML5 assets to verify forms. So we use forms all the time in e-commerce. The user enters a variety of things that might be an order, it might be just information, and then they submit it. And the idea is that we want to avoid what I call round tripping. That's when the form needs to be corrected, doesn't have the correct data on it, and it bounces back and forth between the client and the server. So the way we do that is we're going to create JavaScript code that actually checks the form on the client, and it will block it being sent to the server until it's correct. A couple of key things we're going to learn this week. One is a very useful general tool for your IT toolbox, and this is called regular expressions, which is often abbreviated as regex. So we're going to learn these in the context of using them in JavaScript, but regular expressions are actually implemented in almost every general programming language, including Java, Python, PHP. They're actually part of the Unix file system, so you can use tools like grep. The RE there in the word grep is regex. So what they do is they allow us to specify patterns. And we'll go into more detail this week, but just to give you a quick example, if you see a series of 3 digits followed by a dash and then 2 digits followed by a dash and then 4, you pretty much know that's a social security number. So that's an example of a pattern. And I can write a regular expression that will basically match whether or not I have a valid sequence of digits and dashes to make a social security. I can also do that for phone number and that sort of thing. So we're going to go into a lot of detail with regex, and I wanted to mention that it's not something just for this course or just for JavaScript. This is something you can use all the time. Most IDEs and decent editors have regular expression support for finding and replacing elements. So for instance, I use regex all the time in the Dreamweaver editor and in Microsoft Word even to manipulate documents. Okay, in addition to regex, we're going to look at how we use JavaScript for verification of forms. And you're going to see that we have 2 major methods. There are events. The onSubmit event occurs when the user submits the form, and the onBlur event occurs when the user leaves one of the fields on the form and usually hits the tab or the return and goes to the next field. So the onSubmit basically is a method that returns true or false, and that's where you're going to put your validation code to validate the entire form. So it'll return false if the user has left some of the form unfilled or filled it incorrectly. When we use the onBlur method, we actually drill down and we do the same thing, but for a particular field. One of the things you're going to notice this week is that when we have an error on the form, we want to, make that really apparent to the user. So typically, we'll throw like a red box up around that. We'll run the focus back to the form so the user can re-enter the data, and we'll pop up a little error message of some kind. And we're going to use jQuery class methods to do that. So for instance, the style of putting a red border around a problem area will be in the CSS style sheet, and we'll add the class that specifies that error style to that part of the form dynamically with jQuery code. So there's a number of jQuery methods that do this. You have add and remove class, and you have toggle. So we're going to look at all these things and combine. Now, before we go here, let me just mention this stuff is a lot friendlier than it used to be. With the HTML5 additions, the forms in HTML5 pretty much verify themselves. So the amount of coding we actually have to do is really limited. So some of this coding that I'm going to show you, you probably won't have to do too often. Now, when you have a real complicated case where you have multiple fields that are related to one another, the HTML5 markup doesn't support checking relationships between the fields, and that's when you're going to have to use the JavaScript. You're also going to have to use the JavaScript for older browsers that don't support HTML5. Finally, I just want to mention this is not about security. This is all happening on the client, and it's very easy to completely bypass all of it. So the reality is, in a situation where the data is important and there's issues like e-commerce, you have to check the data again on the server anyway. And usually we don't get into that in this course, but we might do a little bit of that when we explore the mean web development. Okay, so I hope you have fun this week. It's going to be kind of challenging. The regex is fairly complicated, and you really have to practice it to get good at it. I don't think you'll have any trouble, though, with the JavaScript or the jQuery. All right, take care.